morning, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. I wanna move closer, but I don't control it. I know I've been trying, the door isn't open. I know it sound funny, but really though, in the beginning we really close. Now we just cruising up on the coast. Don't wanna lose you, I really don't. My God, I'm working so hard. I let my guards down and I'm feeling so far. You won't cut me off and I'm ready to grow and I'm ready to know you more. Please, I honestly say I'm mature. It ain't my decision, it's yours. But I will persuade with my all, cause I'm ready to run to your arms. I just want you to know that I wanna go to a place where I find you, a place I call home, a place where I'm not alone. And maybe I'll grow just a little bit more, and I'll be your wake up in the morning, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. I wanna move closer, but I don't control it. I know I've been trying, the door isn't open. I know it sound funny, but really though, in the beginning we really close. Now we just cruising up on the coast. Don't wanna lose you, I really don't. My God, I'm working so hard. I let my guards down and I'm feeling so far. You won't cut me off and I'm ready to grow and I'm ready to know you more. Please, I honestly say I'm mature. It ain't my decision, it's yours. But I will persuade with my all, cause I'm ready to run to your arms.
Now, from the MITM Business Consultants comes Man in the Middle, your one-stop shop for financial tips and tricks that big banks and corporate America won't teach you and don't want you to know. Discussing the latest and greatest products, services, skills, and habits to grow and support the financial needs of your business and you. Giving you the knowledge to help make your own important choices for your business and you. Disclaimer: Man in the Middle expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, reliance on, or inability to use this podcast or the information presented in this podcast. Now, here is your Man in the Middle, with 10 years of experience in the financial and banking industry, Art Abrahamian.
What is going on, everybody?
What's
Welcome
going
back.
on?
Episode 18, Man in the Middle. It has been a couple weeks. We've had a lot of stuff going on, and between like drama in the household to losing a loved one, we've just, it's been a mixture of everything. So we're glad to be back. Payson, what's going on?
Glad to be back.
You know, and if you guys didn't notice in the intro, if you were around, we are proud to have Nissim Black, who authorized us to allowed us to use his song. So we want to thank him, and his info will be in the description in the podcast and everything if you want to hear more of his music. Great guy. Want to thank our sponsor, USCCA. And before we get started, we're going to go ahead and play that video.
It's in our nature to protect the ones we love, to stand up to any danger, to be strong and courageous, to always be prepared, to keep our family safe, to be the first line of defense. We are born to protect.
Chills.
Today's podcast, what is it going to be about, Payson?
Picking the right business partner.
That's a good topic.
I feel like that's a really important topic.
Yeah, that is a crucial topic, because depending on who it is you align yourself with professionally, and I think this applies not just to the business world, but I think to the personal world too.
I feel like it's like just like picking someone you're going to marry, right? Like in
Yeah,
the
it's
business
all-
world, if you go into business, it's like getting married.
It's essentially getting married to your business partner. You know, I have.
That makes me feel like an American.
Thanks for the comment, human. We appreciate that. But yeah, picking your business partner is super important, right? Like before I did this, I used to be. I partnered up with somebody who was a physique model, and we were doing wholesale manufacturing of custom designer clothes for working out. And I was the brains behind the operation, and he was the face of the company because he was very fit, very nice guy. He had like 200,000 followers. And where we didn't work out was I was so business minded and business driven, and he was so passion driven, but didn't see beyond the point of this is his passion. And I remember the conversation that really took us to split. I mean, you know, we put in all this work, thousands of dollars, and it wasn't a bad split or anything. It was just like, hey man, you know, you want to split, it's not working, that's fine. You know, this is what I've put into it. All I want to get is what I've put in, and that's it. And I remember the conversation that led to that because I was getting frustrated because he wasn't doing enough on his end. I was doing all the work, and I'm like, look, dude, I gave you very simple stuff.
Yeah, to do.
Like, just get it done. And then I remember the conversation led to, he's like, well, it doesn't really matter because who cares how long it takes? Like, this is my dream. And this is, I mean, you know, if it takes forever, I was like, no, I care because it's a business at the end of the day. And if it doesn't pay me, it's not my passion. It's your passion.
Yeah.
Like, I'm in it to make some money. And ever since then, that's where it broke. Cause he's like, if you're not passionate, I'm like, it's not about my passion, dude. This is your dream, not my dream. You wanted somebody to come on and make it a business for you. This is what we're doing. And, you know, after we split and I left and, you know, sold my portion of the company, that company never did anything again.
I bet.
Because passion projects are great. And, you know, I'm the first person to say, follow your passions, make a business of what you love, but it just doesn't always work.
Right.
You know, if
Well,
you're a minute,
just passion alone is only going to take you so far.
right. You know, passion is important for what you do because you have to love what you do or else the people around you are going to see that you're not into it 100%.
Of course.
But there's a level of work ethic that passion doesn't account for, where it's like you have to you have to wonder what would be the best alternative for the business. And it's like, if I'm putting in 100 hours a month and you're putting in 10 hours a month, I'm 10xing your production. And I don't know. It's just, you know, the old saying is like, don't go into business with your family either, right?
Yeah, well, that's something I learned. I mean, we're still like, I mean, obviously the whole thing it's happened. I know we've talked about it with the sandblasting, but like it was interesting to do that with my brother and my dad because they collided a lot because they're very similar in personalities, you know, and like it was something like we probably definitely shouldn't have done that. Probably, like looking back at it, I need a man in the middle to up my t-shirt printing game. But it definitely was. It was definitely a learning process, and we had to learn how to work with each other's personalities, especially more from my brother and my dad more than me. But I could see why too, because it just makes it. It's harder to obviously talk about things, I feel like, with your family than even what it is with a business partner. And then if things go wrong too, you may completely sour that relationship and end up not talking with your family member again.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. There, you know, I like any relationship, because that's what it is. Even though it's a business one, it's a relationship at the end of the day. So like communication, honesty, trust, those are really important things. And when you factor a couple things like, does this person understand what we're all about? Okay, well, what's the vision of the company? You know, we're trying to change the world in the way we do things and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, well, that's great, but how? You know, and whose role? I think assigning roles is really important, right?
Yeah, I think it's like that thing where you probably, before you get started, right, you need to lay out what everyone's role is and exactly what they're expected to do. Because then once you get started, if you don't do that, then it's like, well, I expect you to do this. And you're like, well, I didn't sign up to do that. And then it turns into this whole ordeal where things start to not go well.
This is one of those topics that always stay interesting to me. And the reason I say that they always stay interesting is because the real issues end up lying on, like, I make a decision and you don't support that decision or agree with that decision, so then it causes the business rift, right? Because there's not enough trust. So it's like if we started a business together and we're like, hey, you know, this is what it needs to be. I think I want to go this direction with this manufacturer. First of all, we should have a conversation about it. And there should be respect of the rules too. So like if your job is CFO, well then there's a reason you're a CFO. You shouldn't be a CFO if you have no idea how to run the money of the company. That's another thing, is like, don't give yourself the title because you think it's going to sound good.
Yeah.
Give yourself the title that you know you can manage. So if you want to be in charge of PR, because that's what you do, your bread and butter is being online and leaving a digital footprint and showing people how to market and advertise, then do that. That's great. That's what you should stick to. But knowing your element is also important. I can't tell you how many times I see business owners come in here and I'm like, well, who's in charge of the books? My wife. Your wife has never had a book job, an accounting job a day in her life. Mm-hmm. What do you mean she's in charge of your books? Oh, well, she's in charge of my book. Well, who's in charge of your taxes? My wife. Why is your wife in charge of your tax? What are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like, assign the proper person for the job. And, you know, it's one thing if somebody's like, hey, you know, who helps with the scheduling? Oh, my wife helps with scheduling. Great. You know, oh, she does the paperwork or she does the billing because she's done that before. Great. I mean, some sort of experience plays into play. You wouldn't hire a person with no experience if you were in the active market looking for someone. So why the hell would you do that to yourself right out the gate?
For sure.
You know, a lot of the time people think, oh, well, to save money because I don't make enough money, in this business, I'm going to try to do everything myself. And what that does is, all it does is, yeah, you might be saving money in the short term, but in the long term, you're hurting yourself more than you're helping yourself, because you may have been able to do everything on your own, but because you didn't do it efficiently, because you didn't have people there to tell you how you could do it better, how you could save more money by doing things a certain way. Sounds like interest role play. If you were to talk to people about how you're supposed to do certain things, at that point the dynamic changes, where it's like, okay, I have an experience with accounting and bookkeeping. I have an experience with you know, managing employees. I have an experience with this. Well, then stay to that. And picking business partner is important too, where it's like, who's the guy that you're going into business with? Look at the way that he lives. Look at the way that he acts. Look at the way that he carries himself. If it's some guy that all he does is sleep until 4 p.m. every day, drink and play video games all day, why would you go into business with this person? Because in their regular day-to-day, they're not driven to do much of anything. So why would that turn into any, you know?
Yeah.
You know, I had a friend at one point, and I've talked about this person before. We're not friends anymore, and the reason we're not friends anymore is because he just completely lack of drive. And this was the gentleman I had talked about before, who was addicted to alcohol. He was an alcoholic, and the side of him that came out every time he'd start drinking is the most, like, you couldn't even be around this person. And this is a real story too. One day, he still no job, drinking all the time, and you know, we're on Discord talking, and I go, why don't you like get into the tech industry? And he goes, oh no. I mean, he that's what he wants. He loves that stuff. And he's like, no. I said, why don't you start your own gig? And he's like, well, you know, I'm the type of person that, like, if you started it, I'd gladly work for you and I'd put everything I got into it. I was like, okay, really? So I doubled down on that theory, and I created a company, created a website, created a brand, created a logo, gave it everything. I put probably $200 into this just to prove that he's full of crap. Like I was that dedicated to proving that he's full of crap. So I create a website, create this, create that, and then I'm pushing him like, hey, okay, I created it, right? You said you'd work if I did, so let's do this. So I start getting him all this stuff to be successful, like programs and this and that, and I end up finding out he's telling everybody, oh, me and Art started a company, okay? And then, like, a couple days later, every time I would call him, like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I was like, why don't you call these people? I just talked to them. See if you can get them interested in doing this. Why don't we offer these services? And he's like, yeah, you're right. We should. Never does anything with it. And then one day I saw him in person, and I was like, dude, what's your deal? And he's like, I don't know. I just get in my own head, and this is the problem I have, and I'll snap out of it. So like a month goes by. He doesn't snap out of it. I said, look, dude, at this point, you're not doing anything. I ended up finding out from a friend the other day, it was like 2 or 3 days ago, where that same guy said, they asked her, how's everything going with that business? And he's like, dude, Art's just making me do everything. It's not going. He's like, he's not doing a single thing. And it's like, you haven't touched a single thing. I've done everything. All I'm asking you to do is the part that you said you wanted to do, right? That if I created it, you'd magically make it, work. And I did that. And our friend group knows.
Yeah, that he's full of it.
Yeah, of course he's full of it. And it's like, but the funny thing is they know I did this solely to prove the point that that's not true. Because that's the thing, right? Like, you have to know people's demeanor and what they're truly capable of. And it's like, if you're going to sit there and be like, oh, well, I don't put any effort because it's not ours. Mm-hmm. If you don't put any effort because it's not yours, why would you try when it is yours? You have that work ethic of I don't put any effort. I think, my ideal business partner is somebody who understands what it is we're trying to sell, has a great work ethic, and is someone I can trust. And trust is a huge thing because I have seen throughout my career, countless issues of business partners screwing each other. I don't know if you remember that conversation we had where two business partners came in with the attorney. The room is tense as can be. I'm like, what's going on? Turns out one of the business partner screwed the other guy's wife, and they split the company that moment. He gave him $100,000. He said, get out and never come back. It's like, if you can't even trust your wife or kids around your business partner, that's another problem. The idea is like, it's supposed to be a tight knit family, where it's
should be like a brotherhood essentially.
Yeah, because you're trusting them. Dude, you go to a bank and you put yourself on an account with somebody and you load that son of a gun with money. That person can walk in the next day and take it all.
Right.
And there's not a damn thing you can do about it.
Right.
So it's like, if I trust you enough to put your name on an account, and I trust you enough to give you a credit line that I applied for, and that if you use and walk away from, I'm still responsible for. It's like, those aren't things you trust people with. The guy that I did the clothing line with, like, I really liked him. I trusted him, but I could tell that he had this like weird demeanor to him, to the point that, like, out of the $10,000 credit line, I gave him a separate card with $500 because I knew he was starting to do drugs and all this other stuff. And I was like, I'm not putting myself financially in that situation where I could financially be like damaged heavily. Like, I'll take a $500 hit on the chin and just walk away from it and be like, whatever, it could have been worse, but not 10. And he always wondered that. How come he only got a 5? I'm like, dude, because it's my credit line at the end of the day. It doesn't matter that it's our business. I'm the one that had to file for it. So if you screw something up, I'm responsible for it.
Right.
Because that person's not going to come back and be like, dude, I'll give you every penny that I owe.
Yeah.
Just walk away. And another thing is, like, the biggest advice I could give is do not accept business partners just by a handshake. Like, we're talking about doing a little bit of something within the company. And I told you we'd open up a separate division of the company. We do that 50-50 and have it all documented on paper. It's not because I don't trust you, but it's because I want you to be able to show that you do, in fact, have a percentage of something, because that's important. There's a sense of pride to it, where it's like, how many people come through these doors where they're like, oh, well, it's not just my business. It's our business. And I look at all the documentation and all the paperwork, and I'm like,
it's
no,
just
it's
one
not.
guy's.
It's just one person's business. Yeah, but we know it's 50-50. Like, he could screw you tomorrow,
Yeah,
and there's not a damn thing you could do about it.
right.
You know, it's a way to hold each other accountable too, where it's like, look, man, you can't just make all the decisions. I have 50% too. I get a say. My rule of thumb with like business discussions and business like arguments, not even arguments, just disagreements, I would say, is like both people should be able to agree. Like, if we can't agree on the thing together, we won't make that decision. And it's funny because in my relationship with my wife, I have this thing too, where we will not put something or renovate something in the house if both of us don't agree.
Yeah.
So as much as I like something, if she doesn't like it, it doesn't go in. As much as she likes something, if I don't like it, it doesn't go in. It's frustrating because we want what we want,
Right.
but it's the most fair way we can do things.
Right.
Because it's like, this way both of us are in agreement and we make it happy. And, you know, it's I'm not trying to say that my relationship with my wife is like a business transaction, but I think relationships are like business transactions.
They are.
You have to maintain the relationship. You have to manage it. You have to financially put in your side. You have to put in your time, you know, and I tell her too, I'm like, I think being in a relationship is a job, but it's
is.
not a bad job.
No,
it's a job that I
it's definitely a
love,
job.
but it's a job because
It's something you have to nurture and maintain
exactly,
and keep up with.
you know, and when you feel like you don't and it's not a job, it sits there and you're like, well, then I'm not going to try anymore.
Right.
But that's not it, you know, and it's like, it is a job to me. When I have to go to ballet practice for my daughter and I have to go to dance and I have to go to gymnastics and that's a job. I got to be there at a certain time. I can't just show up when I want to show up.
Right.
And when you're juggling it with other things, it's like, okay, this is getting rough, but you know, it's a labor of love.
Mm-hmm.
So your business transaction needs to reflect the same healthy relationship that you try to maintain with a loved one, because it's like those two things go hand in hand. Spouses are another thing that affect business partners. Most people don't understand that, but it's like, I do love that job. I do absolutely love my job as a dad and a husband, but it's a job. It is a job. Nonetheless, it is still a job. But one thing that I would say as well is, like, I have seen countless business partners have a spouse or a girlfriend, and actually that was one of the leading factors to that clothing thing that blew up, is because I told him he got a girlfriend. It was our physique model, essentially. It was one of the models who was wearing our clothes, and they got into it. They, like, you know, hooked up, and they fell in love. And it was like the most toxic relationship you'd ever seen. And I kept telling him, stop getting advice from her. Stop giving her input. She's just a person who takes the pictures. That's it. Mm-hmm. She has no business experience. She has no nothing. She's over here talking about, like, we need to go donate this. We need to do this. I'm like, who the fuck are you? Things are going great. You show up, all of a sudden things start slowing down. That means it's not us.
It means it's you,
It means it's you. But one of the factors was that she started pushing, like, you can do this on your own. You could do this on your own. You don't need him. You already learned enough from him. And then it just started the rift. And it's like, though, you either separate those things altogether or they become one cohesive unit. I like to separate it all together. My wife never wants to get involved, like, with any of the business dealings that we have going on, or that I have in the background, because she understands. I don't know about it. I don't care about it. Just, you know, I trust you. You know what you're doing. Just whatever. Make sure we don't lose the house.
Yeah.
That's as far as that goes. But, like, if you have somebody who's just nagging on the other side of, like, you don't need him, you don't trust him, you don't this, it can create a negative experience and impact. That's the primary reason that if we feel like clients don't trust us, we won't work with them anymore. We'll literally just cancel them right then and there and be like, if the element of trust.
I've heard you do that a couple times now. I've heard you talk about how you've had to do that.
Yeah, because if the element of trust is not there, then what's the point? I can't work with someone that I don't trust. And if everything I do, I feel like I have to defend on the basis of I'm trying to hurt you, not help you, it's not worth my time.
No.
You know, it's not worth my time. And I don't know I see we have some viewers, I don't know who's here, but it's like, you know, Kevin is a great example. And you know, we love talking about Kevin because Kevin is like, loves his company and our company. And he's always been supportive of Man in the Middle. And, You know, we've always been supportive of Pools Inc., but it's like Kevin's the same way, where it's like he trusts us. His wife has a great relationship with our company because she's come here and seen, like, okay, you know, definitely know what they're doing. And it's a funny story, and I hope he's okay with me sharing, but that was getting ready to do his previous year taxes before he became our client. He came in, we kind of fixed all this stuff, and we told him to get his stuff ready so we could at least get his taxes situated because he was late. Mm-hmm. And I told him, you know, hey, we can do all your accounting for that year to get it nice and ready, or, you know, you can do it. And at this time, it was still pretty new, so he wanted to save some money, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. Because the wife was like, don't worry about it, I'll do it. And bless her heart, she's really a sweetheart, and she is. And she's a very educated woman. Master's degree graduate in, like, child psychology, mind you. So it's not like...
Yeah, she's extremely smart.
She's very smart. It's not like, you know, she's in the boonies doing nothing. She's a very educated woman. So, but when she got hands-on with the stuff, she was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. You know, because it's just as educated and as smart as she is, because it wasn't her realm of expertise.
Right.
It was foreign, and when it becomes foreign, she was prone to making a lot of mistakes. So much so that we spent a good hour on the phone talking to her and telling her, like, these are how these things work. This is, and again, she's super smart, so she got it after the fact. But she even said, she goes, I thought I could do this, but I don't want to do this. I'm good.
Yeah.
Because most people, when we talk about it, they think, oh, it's just...
That's good, though. That, like, that's obviously, that shows that she's a smart person, too, because she recognized, hey, this is not my thing.
Exactly.
Whereas some people, they'll be
and
like,
it's a lot bigger
I
than
could
most
do
people
it.
think.
And they're failing, like, no, I got this handled. It's like, no, you don't have this handled.
I agree. It's like that meme where the girl's outside in the fire in the house, and she's just smiling. She's like, everything's fine. And it's like, she's so funny. And she said, I'm never doing this again. I hate this.
Yeah.
Because most people think, oh, it's really simple. Just take this and put it here. Put it in this box.
Yeah.
Oh, move this in this box. And it's like, when you say it like that, it sounds simple. But when there's intricacies involved and certain tax
that's
benefits.
why people get degrees in this stuff. That's why they spend their life learning this stuff.
Exactly.
It gets very intricate very quickly.
Sure, and it's constantly changing.
Yeah, I know that's like, I mean, I know when we talk about things, you're like, hey, I think it's this, but let me double check because it might have already changed since I last looked at it. It does
all the time. Every year, it's a different number. It's a different percentage. It's like the solar thing. It was like, originally it was 26%, but then California passed the thing that you get a rebate of 30% on your solar. Right. So these sales guys are writing down the rebate, but it's only a 26% rebate in their pitch. And I was like, if only they knew they're actually saving 30% now, they would be able to sell it a little bit easier.
Yeah, because it's just that much better.
So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, what do? You know, you have to stay up to date with it. But I found, and the reason I'm telling this story is because I found that so fun to just see, because I always love when people are like, oh, we'll just do it ourselves. And I'm like, okay, I'll be here when you're ready. But it's just fun to see, like, the ember that turns into the wildfire. You know, it's like it goes downhill. It goes downhill really quick.
Right.
Just say, have I introduced you to my friend ChatGPT? ChatGPT is very cool. I think it's a great product, but I can tell you, trying to use it myself, certain aspects of it, it doesn't. It's
good with some things, and it's not good with other things. Like, it did well if you look at my website, all the writing on it, pretty much ChatGPT. Like, I'd input what I needed it to input, and then it wrote my whole website.
Right, but if you were to ask it to be like, hey, you know, do an Excel spreadsheet with 10 million lines of code, the chances are this thing's going to say, sorry, I don't. Because there's been a lot of things I've entered in.
I have quite a few friends that are software engineers, and they're like, we still can't use it to write code. Like, it can write really basic pieces of code, but it can't write anything that's complex.
I know. I've tried to get it to write code because I was like, oh, now I can, those ideas in my head,
you're like,
I can get this thing. I don't have to invest $50,000 into programmers from overseas. I can just ask it to do it.
Right.
And then it's like, yeah, sorry, we don't do that. And I'm like, damn it, it's not
you're like
time
almost
yet.
there.
It's not time yet, especially for that medical device that I want to create, the one that measures all the sensors and stuff. And I was like, how do I do this? ChatGPT, come on. And it's like, yeah, sorry. It's like, in theory, you could, but yeah, man, I don't know. I think it's a great tool, though.
I mean, it saves me so much time with work because I literally
That's me. Sorry.
My work, it literally like my whole website for my real estate page is completely basically written by it, so it works really well.
I know. I think I have a client out in the lobby.
Oh really?
Well, that's what I'm just texting to make sure. Anyways, ChatGPT. I agree with you. The ChatGPT. I think it's a good tool, and I think it's like anything else. You should never rely on it.
Right.
I think you should.
Well, and I always
it.
I always proofread everything that it says, because it doesn't always even say the right stuff, even when you give it like a specific prompt or whatever. Like sometimes it's like I'll tell it to do something specifically, and then it'll do everything, and then throw in like one extra weird piece, and it's like, why did it throw that in there?
Yeah, one time I had it write something, and it wrote it in slang, and I didn't ask it to write in slang. It was like, "Yo, why you effing with my money?" And it like blanked out the word, and like, I'll catch you rolling in the streets, and I was like, what the hell? And then I was like, okay, so now rewrite that, but don't say that dumb shit.
I wonder if someone on the opposite side that works for what is it called, OpenAI or whatever, was like just laughing hysterically. They saw like the cut. They saw the
dude. I was like, what just happened? Like my ChatGPT bot was from the hood that day or something. I don't know, dude. It was writing everything in slang, and I was like, I didn't even ask it to do that.
That's funny.
But yeah, man. I mean, I think business relationships, they're like any relationship. They're like any friendship. It should be built on a foundation of trust, honesty, understanding, and capabilities. And it's the same thing. If I'm not a millionaire, why am I going to start a relationship pretending to be something that I'm not?
For sure.
Oh, I think he's canceling. Take it over from here. Let me just see what's going on.
Yeah, no, I think it's funny because the whole reason why I was thinking about this topic today, for all you know, I am an AI. The reason why I picked this topic was because when I first got out of high school, I tried starting a real estate wholesaling company with two buddies that just went terribly wrong, because I was the guy doing everything, and they were both like, yeah, we'll help. And then they both kind of, one was still working at it gradually, but he started to peter off, and he's like, yeah, I'm not into this anymore. And then the other guy was just never did anything basically from the start. And after that, I feel like it was nothing happened with that company. We didn't make a single penny, and we just wasted a couple $100 and some time. But it was a good learning experience to know, like, okay, I shouldn't just because I have a good idea and someone else wants to do it with me, I shouldn't just start it. Like, they're definitely, I don't know how you would recommend fielding out because it'd basically be like you have the dating process, right? Before you go into business, essentially. Like, you want to make sure that you know the person well enough.
Yeah, for sure. It's like an interview process. It's
right.
like, what are we going to do? The staging, the pre-planning. Like, how are we going to do this?
And who are you?
Exactly. And it's like, if I've known that person and I'm like, hey, you have a quality, an attribute that I don't, or I think would enhance what I'm doing right now, let's sit down and talk about how we can make this work, how we can make that, make sense. But going back to the relationship thing that I was saying is, like, if I'm broke, I am not going to sit there and pretend to be a millionaire. Right. Most guys do that when they date someone, is they pretend to be something they're not. Oh, right out the gate, I'm going to take you to fancy places. I'm going to buy you all these gifts.
Yeah.
I'm going to go into debt essentially to be something that I'm not. And yeah, sure, you could pull that off for a little bit, but you've created a bad environment. Now you've created something where that person expects this out of you, because that's what you've put up. You can't physically or financially support that lifestyle. So then the relationship ends, and whose fault is it? Theirs or yours? Yours. You led this person on to a lifestyle that wasn't true. So it's like, it's the same thing with business. You have to be transparent and concrete about what your capabilities are and what you can do. It's the equivalent.
Because you want to make sure too that you're not bringing, like, it's not you and someone else that's the exact same personality and does the same
Why do we
things as
need
you. Like,
two of us? For what reason?
You need one of the, like, you need someone that's like an analytical guy, and you need one guy that's kind of like more of your, like, thinks big picture and isn't analytical. Like, you need those two opposite sides. And if you have two guys that are just analytical, there may not be some of the risk.
All they're going to do is analyze each other all freaking day, and then no one's going to get it. Exactly. It's just, there is no, like, one size fits all formula, but there's definitely a thought process behind it of like, you have to have both equally contributing factors and some negative about it too. Like a little bit of contrarian is sometime okay, because if you and I just keep agreeing with each other all the time and we don't challenge each other,
it may be bad. Do you know what's funny actually? When I was in Indiana this week, Zoe's grandpa was talking about business because he had a partner for a long time. The guy ended up passing away, and he said they never got into arguments. But he said what they'd always do is, like, if one had an idea, he'd pitch the idea on why it was so great. The other guy would then pitch why it wouldn't be great, and then they'd flip, and then they'd have to sell it the opposite way too. And then after that, they would go and discuss what made sense about it and what didn't, and then that's how they decide if a deal makes sense.
Well, that's exactly, I mean, communication, but you can tell, those gentlemen are elderly, right?
Yeah.
So it's like that way of communicating is not as much as it is now. Everything is a passion, and what I say that is not a bad thing, but passion isn't a good thing all the time. Mm-hmm. You can commit crime in the heat of passion, right?
You could be blind to a lot of things.
Exactly.
You could be like laser focused on one thing and miss everything else around you, and then you end up screwing yourself and the company
so
over.
When people are like, I'm passionate, I'm like, passion is great, but it can also, that's why we have something called heat of passion. Mm-hmm. When you commit a crime and you kill somebody because they hurt your girlfriend or your mom, and it's like, you have to slow it down and be like, yes, it's a passion. I love what I do, but I can't let that love for what I do get in the way of what's right.
Right.
And that's just what it is. There's a right and a wrong, and there's a fine line in between where it's like it was right and wrong at the same time, and then you weigh how bad and how good it was. It's not an easy thing to find. Finding people you can trust is very difficult. I've been through countless people where I thought I could trust them and it didn't work out. And I'm sure those people could say the same thing. But when it comes down to brass tacks, I know that I've never done anything to screw anybody I've ever worked with. I've only done what was fair, and I could always explain what was fair. When the person's not even willing to listen to why I think something is fair and why this, it's like if I have concrete evidence, like, dude, I put in this much, you put in nothing.
Yeah.
I just want to recoup what I put in, and then we're good. You can have the rest. Mm-hmm. I don't even go into business with many people, but if I ask somebody, let's go into business together, that means I trust you a lot because I'm not interested in wasting my time. I'm in it to make some money, and it's like we can make good money, but we can do it the smart way.
Right.
I'm not trying to go to jail over a couple $1,000s. That's one of the things I tell people all the time is like, I'm not interested in doing something the sleazy way. Mm-hmm. I'd rather put more money into it to get it the right way and make it the perfect way than risk losing everything for a couple bucks.
Exactly.
It's not worth it.
Well, that's why, obviously it's totally, I think when different, but like when you're starting a company, like I know we talked about, like you try and do things the cheap way, but like if you do that, you're just setting up bad things that you are later on going to have to fix.
Exactly.
Where that's like where I think with like the sandblasting, I'm glad we found you when we did before we kept going on, because then it probably would have just kept getting more and more things would have been wrong, and you would have had to come in and just fix more and more.
And that's usually what ends up happening is by the time we get involved, it's like it's too late. It's either too late and there's really not much we can do because you've committed yourself to so many things prior to us that we can't. There's just really nothing left for us to say much about. But it's like one of the things that I think is really important, and it's like what we said. Harbor Freight, I'm going to use this as a great example, and this is a good example. I use this example as for life sometimes. Harbor Freight has the shittiest tools, and I always say it solves the issue once. Mm-hmm. When I go to Harbor Freight, I don't buy a tool thinking it's going to last me a lifetime, but there's a reason for that, because I don't need it to last me a lifetime, because I'm probably going to use this thing once, 5 times, so maybe it will last my lifetime, because I'm not in the field of construction. Mm-hmm. So it's different. It's okay to spend less if it's not your field. It's not something you're going to be doing. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't build a house with their tools. And if I would, I'd only build that house once. I couldn't take that tool into the next house because I could probably get it to work one time and one time only. Now, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people in this industry who's like, no, Harbor Freight has some good stuff. That's not the point I'm making. I'm trying to say that there's a difference between manufacturing. those tools are typically cheap Chinese-made tools, whereas most of the other stuff is like quality steel, quality material, made in, even if it's made in China. There's a substantial difference between cheaply, made in China and quality made in China.
Right.
Because materials is what makes that huge factor. But I do not go to Harbor Freight and buy $100 screwdriver to go... Cheers. I don't buy $100 screwdriver to fix the wobbly door handle.
Yeah.
I need a $2 screwdriver to fix that wobbly door handle.
Right.
Now, if you're telling me I'm going to make, if I start a business fixing people's wobbly door handles,
You're going to need the $100.
I need the $100 tool because I need a quality tool to do a quality job.
Mm-hmm.
Because chances are, when I'm done tightening that stupid door handle, it's going to get loose again. It doesn't have enough torque to it or whatever. Point is, it's like, know the tool for the job. So it's one of those things. I think we've covered the topic. I got nothing else. Cool.
No.
Well,
It's good to be back.
It's great to be back. I always love doing these. And we are in the process. I was on the phone today trying to figure out about this other sponsorship we grabbed. So more info in a bit, but it's a pretty big one. So
yeah, hopefully you'll see us with some cool stuff the next round.
That's the idea. I was texting a lady today. But anyways, we want to thank everybody for listening. We're happy to be back. We look forward to doing the next one. I want to thank Nissim Black for allowing us to use his song Adored, and we'll link his stuff in the description if you want to hear it. I want to thank USCCA for being a sponsor of the channel, and if you want to know more, click that link below as well. I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you on the next one.
See you in the next one.
Thanks for listening to Man in the Middle. If you haven't yet, please consider liking and subscribing to the show. If you can't wait till next episode, follow us on Instagram at MITM Business Consulting and online at mitm.services. There, you can learn more about what we do, how we can help, and the custom services we offer around your personal needs. Until next time, if you'd like to choose the topic we discuss and receive additional services, consider joining our membership program at mitm.services. Disclaimer: Man in the Middle expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, reliance on, or inability to use this podcast or the information presented in this podcast. We look forward to you tuning in next time.